everybody. Welcome to another episode of Snap Decisions. I am your host with the most, your Snap DJ, and I've got another awesome guest with me. He's been here before. You guys, if you've been listening to my show since just about the beginning, you're going to recognize his name. Kiernimbus is here with me tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a while, and a lot to talk to you about, man. I know that you, kind of, even when you were here last, you were kind of talking about how, things were getting a little burned out. You're getting a little burned out on the game and stuff like that. And now you're back, which is awesome. I saw your post about how the Snap Judgments League and stuff kind of brought you back in a little bit more and things like that because things were just different. So how you doing, man? How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. And I of course, I'm excited to be here again. It's been a very long time since our first podcast. But in that time, a lot has changed. And I got to say, first of all, congratulations on getting Infinite.
Thank you so much.
I heard you talk about having it a weight lifted off your shoulders, and that's exactly how I felt. I made it to Infinite once, and it happened in the October season with Man Thing came out.
Okay,
and after that, I have not succeeded getting there again. But the fact that I made it there, makes me happy because I know if I really have the time and really push for it, I can get there.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think one of the things that your comment's 100% right. It is like, for me, I know that even the last time I talked to you, I had that whole thing where I got to 99 and then dived and that was the closest I got. I might have hit the 90s again after that once, I think maybe. And then that was really it. So it is a weight lifted off you. But I want to talk a little bit about that actually going further because I've noticed that once you do, that weight lifts off your shoulders, and then you're like, you may never make it back again. There's no guarantees. Right, yes, you're starting higher on the ladder, but there's no guarantee that says you're going to make it because of certain things. You may not have the time to play, like you alluded to. You may, a lot of things can happen. The meta may just not allow it for whatever reason. So, but one of the things I noticed, and you could tell me if you noticed this too, is that when you get there, and I think I entered in at like rank 45,000 or something like that when I got in, So then when I got in, I'm like, okay, the weight lifted off is cool, but now I didn't have a lot of inspiration to play after that.
Right.
Because it's like, I know I'm not getting the top 1,000. Like, there's no way that's probably ever going to happen. I'm not, I'm pretty good, but I'm not that good. So I'm like, I know. And because again, it's a grind. You really have to keep playing. And I'm like, I know I'm not going to. So I'll once I'm looking and I'm like, I didn't play much the next couple of days after that. And I was like, and I'm glad Arashem came out because it kind of reignited, me wanting to play again. But yeah, I mean, did you have that same feeling? Like after it was over, you get there and it's like, that big sigh of relief. But then you're like, well, now what do I do? And I don't know that I necessarily want to climb up this 45,000 ladder wherever I'm at. So.
I mean, well, for me especially, right? When I got to Infinite, I landed somewhere in the 70,000 range, which was even lower, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in the lower leagues of Infinite already, and I don't mean to slight anybody because obviously I love all the content creators that I watch, but there are a couple of the high-ranked ones that, like, their opinions on the game are shaped around, like, the top 1,000, the top 100, right? In Infinite. So I felt relatively small in the bucket, especially at the rank that I was. And after playing a couple of games, you're exactly right. There's no, like, other than the number going up, there's no incentive to get higher. There's no prize at the end. Other than bragging rights, but other than that, it's I posted the deck that I got to Infinite with, and then for the most part, I just sort of hung out until the end of the season happened because I got Infinite probably 3 days before the end of the season. It was cutting it very close.
Yeah.
And after that, I was like, you know what? I'll just wait for the next one because I already grinded to get this far. I've already sweated bullets. I don't need to load another ammo box. So
yeah, People don't, like I said, I one of the things that I stress on my show is the fact that it does indeed take time. And I don't think that hit me, or I realized that until I was watching another content creator. I was watching a stream that Binks did. I usually watch him because he's on late nights and stuff like that, and I stay up later. But I was watching him play, and he decided to play. He went through and told everybody that he's going to keep playing until he gets to infinite. Well, that was in the morning. I think he started my time, and he was there, I think, for almost 14 or 15 hours later until he hit infinite. People don't, I don't think, understand that. Like, it is not, this game is not always going to go your way. In fact, probably very little of the time you play is going to go your way. You're always going to have obstacles, whether it's locations, card draw, whether it's something your opponent's just playing that you just can't beat. So it's always going to be a lot of ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs, no matter what you do. And sure, I know I'm not the greatest snapper in the world, but even for people who are, like someone like him, it's going to take you a long time. And if you don't have that dedicated amount of time, you're just probably not going to do it. So it's probably not a good goal to maybe set for yourself.
Well, in addition to that, right, for someone like me, I've told you previously on the podcast, I relate to being a filthy casual. Shout out to the Snap Bros.
Yeah.
Right. So all the decks that I play are off meta. I'm a contrarian. I don't like playing what's popular. And so what ends up happening is I shoot myself in the foot trying to climb. And usually I end up around the 80s. I sometimes get to the 90s. And if you're doing it like me, where you're trying to do something out of the box in order to prove something, I mean, that's not going to help you either. You need to pick a deck that you know is strong, that you're comfortable with, and then you can make it infinite. In my case, I really leaned on the latter. I chose a deck that I was very comfortable with, something that I had been using since Pool 3, and I made it through sheer force of will. But it took me probably a whole week of just playing Marvel Snap. I wasn't watching any TV shows. I wasn't playing any of my other favorite games. It was a grind. And after that, I was like, that's like a second full-time job. And
it is.
I can't do that every month.
Yeah.
So I think the pressure to get to infinite is really high when the standards are even higher. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And it's like, and talking about the decks, it 100% like too with that, like I ended up looking at a deck. I played a deck with Cersei. It was a Nihilist package with Cersei and Pixie. And then I had Eliath in there, and the Eliath was the MVP of the deck. No, like hands down the MVP of the deck. So many times Pixie got me a 110 Eliath to end the game with. And it was like, 100%. But unlike in the past, a lot of times, and I know a lot of players go through this too, you're climbing up there and, maybe you're winning a couple games, but then you're losing. Like you're winning 2, then you're losing 3. Then you're winning 2 and losing 3. So then you get frustrated. You're like, this deck must not be that good. I'm going to switch out. Well, I do agree with you there. You really need, because I swore to myself, I'm like, I'm going with this deck and I'm playing this deck all the way through and I am not changing it. And you're right. I think that's a big key for people who want to do that. Get yourself a deck, like you said, like you're comfortable with, how to play, your winning play lines. Is 100% so important. And do not switch midway through, because it's going to lead to disaster. I've done that before. And the next thing you know, you're dropping because number one, you're not as familiar with the deck as you would be of the one you were playing. Right. You're not going to know your weaknesses and your strengths. You're not going to know. And I think the most important lesson that I've learned from so many people who've come on this show and talked to me about it, whether it be, Gunny T and the kid and everybody else that I've had on here, is know when to leave a game. Like you leave on that 1 cube. You don't let it go any further. Like so many times I would take chances and I'd see what looked to be like, okay, I can do this, but here, then I'm watching the other player and already they've got like 3 cards middle and maybe like 10 power there. They might have like 8 power to the right. I know they're playing a Surfer deck. I see the Brood. I know what's coming. Do I have anything that I can do to stop that? maybe I'll pull my Eliath. I don't have it in my hand. Maybe I'll get, but see, those were the times in the past I'd stay in, and now I don't. If I see that, I'm like, yep, I'm not playing the fact that I'm going to be lucky and get it. I'm just going to leave and take the 1 cube loss.
And that's a tough lesson. I mean, I had to basically have it beat into me.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, if you need training wheels on trying to learn that, Howard the Duck is a really good card. I know that, you know, in terms of competitive viableness, a lot of people tend to stray away because of, you know, the arguments against the card. But for me, I was playing it in pretty much every deck that I had, because if I was depending on a draw and I had Howard on the board and he told me it's not coming, I would leave.
Yeah, that's
like
point.
That would be it. I would be like, okay, I'm not getting my combo piece. I'm not getting a big card. And if a good player was playing, they wouldn't need Howard for that. But for me, it was especially helpful to be like, okay, these are the sort of percentages that I'm looking at, but Howard straight up tells me whether or not I'm going to get that next piece. So a small bit of advice for maybe people who have Howard. It's a good card for exactly that lesson.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, look, people play him in Tribunal. He's a staple now in the Tribunal decks because they have to find out what they're going to get. And if they know they're not going to get their big piece, like their Iron Man or the, you know, or the Tribunal, like one of those 3 cards, then most of the time they're out of there. Because they're not going to win the game. So no, yeah, it's a great point. Like everybody kind of disses on. I love Howard the Duck. I love that character. I always have. Yeah. And the fact that, you know, his card isn't so hot, but you're right. Like for a newer player that can get a hold of him, and now he went down in the series, so it should be a little bit easier to get. You know, maybe somebody like that you're just not, like you said, you're not comfortable doing that. And listen, until this run that I had, that was one of my faults. My 2 biggest faults are, number 1 is snapping probably when I should, and number 2 is not knowing when to retreat, because that's the whole thing. Like, and it's so funny. This game, and I've said this before, but this game is so unlike other games we are taught growing up. Like, you know, from the time you're a kid and you're playing, you know, checkers or something with your grandparents, all through the years, you are taught to win the game. This game teaches you to lose gracefully, basically, and get out because you don't want to take the. So it's much more like poker, much more like poker in that manner. You're folding because you don't want to lose a big amount of money. You're going to lose a little bit maybe, but you're like, you know, the ante you're putting in, you might lose that, but you're not losing, you know, a big, huge amount of money. So in that case, it's so much different, but it is hard to condition yourself to retreat. It is, because you always are thinking, oh, I've got a chance. I know I could do this. And that's really hard to fight with yourself about.
Well, and I'm sure our experiences are pretty similar playing other card games, right? You usually play to your outs. That's like the biggest strategy. You assess the things that you have and you try to get to the best condition. But you're right, Snap is very different in that aspect. I would love to know if other card games are being developed right now in the same style as Snap.
Oh, I'd bet. Yeah, I would bet.
Because considering how wildly successful it is, I think it's going to revolutionize the genre, sort of how Hearthstone did with digital card games.
Yeah,
I would expect to see competition in like the next 5 years. Something's got to pop up.
Oh, I'd agree. I would think so. Like the people who do card games for other big like IPs, like DC, for instance. Can you imagine if they came out with a DC game that was very similar to this? People would be all over it. Star Wars, people would be all over something like that. Like, and I have no doubt that's going to. Now, Star Wars is owned by a weird company now that the license for that is they just came out with a tabletop game again with cards for them. So the licensing is probably in all different kind of hands. But no, I agree with you. They're definitely going to follow it. There's no doubt in my mind. The system is just good. It works. And it's just good, you know, like, so yeah, I wouldn't doubt it that we'll see something pretty soon. I would think, yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, it was crazy, man. I like, my wife knew I played the game, right? Like she obviously knows that I do the podcast and stuff too, but I had to warn her when I was at 99, when I was 99 and 2 away, I walked out on the porch. She was sitting on the porch in the back. And I said to her, I'm like, just so you know, if you hear me in there jumping up and down, I'm 2 away from getting infinite in this game for the very first time.
Yeah.
So, but then, you know, she was asking me, did you hit it? Did you hit it? And then then finally, but oh my gosh, that last rung, when you were up there, like when you're at that 99 level, and I remember I started playing that day. I was 2 away, or no, I'm sorry, I was 4 away. So one good game away. And then first game I played, I lost. Second game I played, I lost. Now they were 1 cube losses, but I had a 1 cube. I went down to 98 and 6, I think, or so. And I'm like, oh man. And boy, did that remind me of my 99 debacle. Right. And I'm like, oh, here we go again. But then I won one. Then I won a 4 cuber, which got me back to 99. And then I kind of knew it was like destiny at that point, because I had 2 people in a row just quit the game. They got in. One person, I must have gotten the location that screwed his deck and he left. Another person came in. Something must have happened. Similar with them. They left. So I'm like, all right, I just got 2 free cubes. So this has to be the time, man. I kept on letting it go. And I'm like, I'll always have a backup plan, because if the worst comes to worst, I'm going to play a Darkhawk deck when RSM comes out.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, I always have a backup plan here. But it ended up but I did it. Yeah. It was crazy though. It's, and again, just getting that feeling, and like you said, getting that off your shoulders, and stuff, and is just very cool. So I want to talk to you, obviously, about, you know, what happened with you. So I know, you know, talked a little bit about it in the intro, but you know, you got to the point where you were like, you know, I'm getting a little kind of burned out with it, what I'm doing and stuff like that. Not unlike other people do. So what essentially brought you back into the game and doing what you do?
Yeah. So obviously, or I guess not obviously, if you didn't know, I made a lot of YouTube content surrounding Marvel Snap, and I was making a podcast at the time. I had the YouTube videos going up. I was streaming almost daily, and it came to a point where I was getting very frustrated, because there was something about the game that didn't feel like I was progressing anywhere, especially given the feeling that we've talked about, right? Where you've hit infinite and I've proven that I can do it. So why can't I get there again? Why can't I make decks that I'm satisfied with? Why am I not feeling like I'm having fun with the game? Honestly, the most emotions that I felt was just like disappointment when I lost. You know, I put this weight of expectations on me that I needed to be this phenom, for lack of a better word. And it took me a couple of months, and I'm sure you're very familiar with this, and we can talk about this because I know you probably have a ton of fun with it. The Snap Judgments League. They had their season 2 announced. I was not a part of the first one, but I was like, hey, I'll go in. It's $1, right, on the Patreon for Snap Judgments, the podcast. And I was like, great, I'll try it out. And what I found out was that I was missing a people element. Being able to talk with somebody and have a really intense one-on-one match made the game feel like it mattered.
Yes.
Like, even win or lose, I was getting so much interaction and I had so much fun in the Snap Judgments League that I was like, this is it. This is probably the reason that I wasn't feeling much on the other side. One of the things that Marvel Snap isn't great at is player interaction.
Yeah.
I know you've spoken before on your podcast about the feeling of actually being in a card shop tournament and being able to talk and even after the tournament getting to, you know, like trade cards and talk about the game. And the only place to do that right now is in the Snap Judgments League. I mean, it's incredible. And especially shout outs to Gunny T and Glazer, doing amazing work in that Discord server to keep things organized and on time, and really stellar. It's an experience that you can't really get anywhere else. And if you're out there with an extra $1 in your pocket every month, I would recommend trying it. It's really, really fun.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I'm excited for the new one. Yeah, it's just run so well by Gunny. It does a tremendous job with it. And I loved it for a few reasons. A lot of things that you had mentioned, but yeah, you get to go into Discord first of all, you have to set up your match. So you're going to meet the person that you're playing, right? You're going to talk to them a little bit in Discord and be like, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. And then usually what I would do is after the match, win or lose, I would end up, I'd be chatting with some of these people. I still do today. I'm talking to some of them for like 10, 15, 20 minutes afterwards, and we're just getting to know one another. Some of them have been on the podcast. It's like, this is pretty darn awesome. And you're right, that it is one of the biggest things that I miss about playing, the physical card games is the face-to-face interactions. It's just was such a big part of it for me, because you're not always going to win. We would go and play in tournaments. We'd have tournaments at this one shop we would play in almost every single week. And I got to know so many people, some of them who I still know and talk to today, just from playing Magic against them during the days of that. So yeah, I 100% agree. And I'm glad that brought you back, because I try to tell everybody about that and how cool that aspect of it is. And the fact that, you're going to meet some new people you've never talked to before. Hell, maybe they might even be one of the better players that are out there. One of the other content creators you might get to chat with or something along those lines, which is really cool. And so, 100%. I'm glad it brought you back. I actually, like the first season, I think I went 2-2. And then now this past one, I made the top 8 in my pod. So I actually did better. And then I end up losing, I think, the top 4 match to, I think, a pretty good player, but I'm not sure. I can't remember. It might have been Lufku. I don't remember. I can't remember who it was that I played, but I'm looking forward to it. I really hope they keep it going. And like you said, anybody that listens out there, if you want to get in that competitive type scene a little bit, and something that's very, very cool and well done, definitely do it. Yeah, no doubt. But I'm glad that brought you back. I would agree with you on that.
Yeah, and to sort of come full circle with talking about like the YouTube content and stuff, I think you could probably relate on the idea that I'm sure this podcast probably takes a lot of your time already. Factor in like, playing the game itself, that also takes time. I'm sure there are a lot of people in the universe that deal with a 9 to 5. They have, dinner to cook, dogs to take out, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I just felt really overwhelmed, but I don't think, and maybe this is some advice for people out there, there's no barrier to entry to making content, and you don't have to label yourself in any particular way. Yep. I kept feeling like I wasn't competing hard enough in the scene. And I was oftentimes comparing myself to some of the people that I enjoyed watching the most. But the fact is, I'm a young adult. I have not lived as long as some of these people. I'm still finding my way in life. And I, even if I'm getting older, I don't think that I need to put this sort of weight to compare myself to other people. And I think that could even relate to Snap in a lot of ways. We were talking about the infinite ladder. You don't have to compare yourself to infinite players. Find what you enjoy about the game. In 100%. My case, it was the Snap Judgments League, but for you, it might be anything else, really.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, it's true. If you're not finding enjoyment in a game, and this is, I've said, if you want to set yourself a goal for the month, go ahead and do it. But make sure that that's something that you really want to do. Let's say your goal might be to hit 60 and get that variant card. Maybe that's your goal. And that's fine if that's what, or maybe you just, your thing is maybe you like playing Conquest because there's not a lot of pressure. Go right ahead, but yeah, like the whole thing is this is fun. It's supposed to be a fun thing. And that's ultimately what it is. So, make it fun for yourself, however the heck it is that you want to do it, because you're right. Listen, the content creators, I love what they do. They do amazing work at what they do. But I'm doing this because I love doing it. Right. I know I'm never gonna have a YouTube channel that's gonna get 200,000 subs and all of that kind of stuff, because man, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of work. It becomes almost a lot of those guys, it is their job. That is the job that they are doing. That is their career. And I learned that lesson when I started my other podcast 4 years ago at the wrestling pod that we started. I learned that a long time ago, because you're not only fighting time, but you're fighting algorithms with YouTube. You're
Right.
fighting, so many other things that are out to get you because you're not the person that's out there. And I remember, I think it was TLSG who just returned to Snap also. He had a long hiatus. And
Yeah.
when he came back, he talked about it. It's like, and how he was fighting because he had a lot of real life stuff going on and he was fighting against that. And then all of a sudden you got to make sure I got to get those videos out there. Cause if I'm
Right.
not putting out 4 or 5 videos a week, I'm not going to get noticed because my videos there aren't enough of them out there to beat the algorithm. So it gets tense. And it's like, and I learned that with the wrestling show. I'm like, look, we have a good solid little community. I think we have like 4,000 subs on that channel, and we have a solid little community, and I'm perfectly happy with that. I love the people we talk to, and the same goes with this. I most of my people still listen to me on audio, and that's 100% fine. That's how I started, and I've got a wonderful bunch of people that listen to me and stuff like that every week, and I'm cool with that. And I think you're right. For anybody that is looking to do something like this, going forward, or you want to do like the YouTube thing and everything like that, just set your expectations to be a little more realistic, and don't think you're going to be an overnight sensation, because that just doesn't happen to everybody.
Well, and I think it also compounds, right? Because I guess setting your expectations is especially important in a sphere like this, where the scene is still fairly new, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
people are still figuring out what works best.
Yep.
And we don't have to get into the weeds of content creation because it's
No,
mostly a
yeah.
bunch of jargon.
Oh, yeah.
But the idea that success is going to arrive to you because you're trying really hard,
Right.
that's what got to me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I
Oh,
was
yeah.
trying really hard.
Yep.
I was streaming, I was uploading videos, I was doing
Yep.
the podcast, but if people don't want to listen to me, I can't make them, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's just how it goes. So, I mean, there is one person that's proven that you can work hard enough, and that's Glazer. I will
Oh my
sing his
God.
praises all day.
See, that man, I don't know how he does it. I tell him that every time he's on my
Yeah.
show, and I
Yeah.
call him the hardest working man in Snap, and I firmly stand behind that. Like,
Yeah.
I know what he does. He's an educator. My wife is too, and I know how that life is. You come home from that, and you're like, you're pretty much gone. Like you're just dead to the world. And then he still finds time to go and do the video, or 2 videos, or sometimes 3 videos. Yeah, it's insane. I don't know how he does it.
That man, again, if anybody's proving my statement wrong, it's Glazer. But
Yep.
not everybody can do that. So
Right.
yeah, absolutely. I think my enjoyment with the game came with separating it from the content.
Yep.
I think, and maybe some people need to hear that, but do what you enjoy
Yeah.
ultimately. Like, I made a video on Marvel Rivals, and that actually did surprisingly well, and I had a ton of fun making it. So when that game comes out, I might try again, but
Nice.
we'll see where it goes. I will say though, I'm happy to be back. Snap Judgments League is awesome, and yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah. No, I'm glad to see that you're back and you're having fun, because that's really ultimately what it's all about. I started playing this game because of my love for comic books. It was that simple. I love the art in the books and stuff like that. That's why I get so excited when I see like a comic book cover coming out as a variant. I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember that. I had that comic book when I was a kid. And that those little kind of things get me excited about the game. And obviously I'm a big Marvel fan, always was, in the MCU and all that kind of stuff too. But before that, it was comic books, and I love it. That's why I make them part of my show, because it's like I want to talk about a lot of these books that I read when I was a young man, and have people maybe get interested in that, and then go read a comic book about Arishem, for instance, and find out like where he came from. What is he? Yes, he was in the movie, but they don't get to explore a lot of that like in the films and stuff sometimes. So, but yeah, you've got to do it ultimately. If whoever's listening, Kier said it best, and I, the same thing. I'm gonna pivot off of what he said. You ultimately have to be having fun with what you're doing. If you're not, it's probably not something that's worth it for you. And don't force yourself to do it, because you're only going to get angry and get upset about it. So yeah, if Snap isn't necessarily for you, hey, there's a gazillion other games out there that you could play, and probably different things that you might enjoy better. But yeah, it's 100%. It's great, but it's awesome that you're back, man. I'm glad to see that. And then, of course, Glazer, get in on the league, man. The league's starting again soon. If you haven't joined up, that $1, hey, you can't even get a cup of coffee for $1 anymore. So join the league. You may run into me. Obviously, Kier will be there. And get in on the league. It is really, really fun. So do that for sure. All right, so I mentioned the big guy, right? I mentioned his name, so I thought we'll go over him a little bit right now. So obviously, it is RSM week. This honestly has to be the most anticipated card, I believe, probably since High Evo. All the anticipation around High Evo, I definitely believe that that's true. So you got the card? Yes, you told me.
Yes, I did. Yeah. Yes, I did.
So what do you think, man? I'm having fun with this. It's everything I thought it would be. It's like a mini draft mode in a card, and I kind of like it. I kind of like the fact that you can make your own little deck around it, but then you got to position all these random cards that you're going to get and use some of them and don't use some. I just think it's a lot of fun. I enjoy playing with it the time that I had yesterday and today.
Yeah, no, it's honestly, it might be the most fun I've had on ladder in a very long time.
Yep.
Even when I was losing, I was like, this is just so much fun. And it's a genius design too, when you think about it, because +1 max energy on any other card would be insanely broken. But on Arishem, because there's a lot of randomness, it works like really well. And I don't know exactly what your list was, but for mine, when I came back to Snap, I was missing quite a few of the recommended cards, but I was able to scrape together a list that I found was really fun, including our favorite duck, Howard, which I find is also pretty helpful in a deck like this.
Oh yeah, sure, because you'll be able to see what kind of random nonsense you're pulling up. Like if you pull, you're going to get stuck with stuff you can't. Like I remember, I think it was the second or third game I played with it. I ended up with a Carnage, and I'm like, well, what am I going to do with this? You know, I mean, it's like I can't use this. I'm going to blow up everything in my lane. I went with I saw some lists out there, and I thought to myself, you know what? What makes a lot of sense here is a couple things. You're getting an extra energy per turn.
Right.
So you could kind of figure you're going to waylay through cards a little bit. You're really going to be able to put cards out very quickly. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to get something in there to anticipate that. So I figured the card drawer cards, or the ones you get from your opponent, are big. So Cable, Agent Coulson, the same kind of cards you would use in maybe a Loki deck were smart to get, because you don't want to be stuck there without having something to play. So I went with a little bit of those. Now I've seen them today. In fact, it's so funny. Like last night, I was playing against most of the decks you'll see coming up now are going to be RSM decks. But I was playing against RSM decks now that had Darkhawk in them. And I'm like, oh, my God, seriously? But, I mean, it's smart because it's going to be huge. If they're playing against a list with RSM, the thing is going to be huge. Mm-hmm. So, but I also realized that you're going to have to load up with tech cards, because you're never going to be guaranteed to get any tech. So maybe put a Rogue or an Enchantress in your deck, or definitely a Shang-Chi in your deck, because you're gonna need that, whether it's for an opposing blob or one of my first plays. I think it was my second game in. I ended up getting a blob, and I got an Arnim Zola. So
wow!
I had a humongous blob, and I Arnim Zola'd him on the last turn. I'm like, all right,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. But it's neat. It's just it allows for more creativity. It definitely allows for more excitement, I think, in the game, because, like you said, you just don't know. You can normally, like when you're on ladder, you can pick out a deck, right? When you see a Brood, all right, this is Surfer. I know exactly what they're playing. You know, certain cards will lead you to know what certain decks are. In this, you're not really sure, because anybody can really be playing anything.
Right. Yeah. Well, what's funny is I got into the habit of checking the deck size of my opponent when Thanos came out, or not came out, but became
Yep.
popular. Right. And that's a habit that stuck with me. Before the match starts, I click on my opponent's profile to see their title because sometimes they're very funny, and also the deck size. And I think that's really important now. Like, I think
Hmm.
it's an important factor to consider, especially if you are playing a deck that might suffer when it comes to tempo. Erisham, if he's good at anything, it's tempo. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
throwing out card after card after card.
Yep.
And I also took a couple of lessons, I'm sure, like you did, from some of the content creators on what would go best in a list like this.
Yep.
I also threw Enchantress in there because I figure that's probably a good tech card. I can afford to play it, and it stops some Darkhawk lists.
Yep.
And I also went with card drawers, but I went with the crappy card drawers. I'm talking about like Crystal and Adam Warlock.
Okay.
And surprisingly, it works. I think especially because I have some top end cards like Mockingbird, Doctor Doom,
Yeah.
She-Hulk.
Yeah.
You know, these cards are just good, and they can fill lanes very quickly. So the quicker I can get to those, the better. And then
Yeah.
obviously Quinjet is a superstar. I
Oh
know
my God. Yeah.
I've heard some content creators say that it's a little bit overkill, but in my experience, it is just so good. I can't imagine not using it even
Yeah.
later in the game.
Yeah, for sure. Like I was a little nervous thinking that it's kind of a waste of a card. Like if you don't see it on curve and you don't get it very early in the game, but I'm like, yeah, I've most of the times I've played, I end up getting it, and oh my God, it's a killer. And then
Yeah.
if you happen to put a Loki in your deck, holy cow, man, you almost everything you draw is going to be a zero cost. And if you get their Mockingbird, or if you get, oh man, it's just insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. Like there are definitely certain ways that you can do this. I've seen so many variations of it. I've seen someone play a high Evo deck that actually works really well because they're soaking that energy. Like they'll put out a Sunspot, they'll put out a Cyclops, and for some reason, if they don't use up all that extra energy, they're still that's going somewhere. They're not wasting that additional energy. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. They're playing some different cards in it. They had like a Mockingbird in it too, but they would still have the She-Hulk in there because again, the She-Hulk, if you skip a turn because you don't have anything to play, well, who cares? She's going to get
so good.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think it's neat, man. I like it. I think, so much of the game, sometimes it does get a little stale. The meta does get a little stale. When you see all this stuff going around, lately it's been a lot. Like on my climb from Infinite, it was a lot of Surfer. I've seen a ton of Surfer. I was seeing a ton of Zoo. Which I had to eat my own words for that because I said
yes, I remember you going on a rant about it.
Oh my God. Right before I talked about that deck, and then all of a sudden, like in the next week, Zoo became meta, and I'm like, oh brother, now I have to eat crow. But yeah, the Zoo was out there, and Tribunal was out there. So like, it does get stale. And now with this card, at least for a week anyway, and I think people are going to be playing this a little longer. What remains to be seen is, are they going to play it on ladder? Like when ladder resets and everybody's back to where they are and they're starting over, are they going to be confident in this enough to play it on their climb or trying to get to Infinite? That's going to be the question I'm wondering about. But I don't know, man. I just think a card like this, I recommended people go and get it. Like if you have the capability to do so, if you have the keys, or if you have the ability to get it with tokens, I would definitely get it. Because I think if you don't, I think you're going to miss out.
I mean, and we've been talking about like a new game mode for months. This is the closest thing to a new game mode we've gotten in forever. It's insanely fun. Honestly, the thing that I'm most excited about is this is going to be my permanent Proving Grounds deck. It is just, I could play Proving Grounds with this deck forever. And I would never get bored. It's so fun. I mean, especially with being able to play cards like Uatu, which you would never be able to play.
Uatu, I actually had M'Baku in my deck.
It's crazy, but it's fun. It's a really great time. I agree. If you have the currency, go for it. I did see on Twitter some heartbreaking screenshots of people who had 3 spotlight caches
and
and
missed it.
didn't get RSM, and I was like, ugh. The system is pretty good, but in
Yeah.
moments like this, it's just so painful.
It is. I was one of those people. I'm right there with them. I had to waste 4. I went through 4. I got the tokens first for the card I already had. Then I got Hercules. And then I got who was the other one? Was it I don't even remember who's the other spotlight that's in there.
Black Swan.
I got Black Swan. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I'm like 4th one in, and I got him. So, but I was lucky I had the amount to waste. But yeah, it's hard, man. Like when you, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that too, right? So you now are classified as kind of a returning player, and you mentioned it before that. Now, so what was it like? Because I think this is something that Snap really needs to consider. I think this is one of the big things, along with maybe changing a little bit of the stuff at the beginning of the game, especially Series 3. But I think this is something they need to do something about, is returning players. I heard TLSG talk about it and how many cards he had been missing. And now the cards that he can't get because they're not going to be available until a Spotlight Cache, which may not come up for 6 months. So, people missed out on a card like Cannonball. Nobody thought he was going to be very good. And then all of a sudden he became a meta staple deck. So it's like, how was it for you being away for a while and then coming back and then saying like, oh man, I missed a bunch of cards now that I'd really like to get. And unfortunately I can't get them. So.
Yeah, it's obviously my situation isn't as bad as someone like TSLG or Mogwai. Those are guys that completely stopped playing the game. When I was taking my hiatus, I basically hopped on like once a week.
I got you. So you still kept up with it. Yeah. Okay.
But that being said, because I wasn't on the grind, because I wasn't completing the battle pass, because I wasn't doing these things, I didn't get a lot of spotlight keys. Right now I'm at 7 after opening RSM, and I have about 3,000 collector's tokens. That's not enough to get any of the new cards unless I'm very careful in what I've been choosing, which is what I've had to do for about the past month. The cards that have come out, I basically skipped all of them except for RSM in order to build up my reserves, and that kind of sucks. I like building new decks. I like getting the new cards, and I can only imagine what that would be like if I stopped playing entirely. I would be missing. I would be missing Mockingbird. I would be missing. Hell, there are already some cards in the Arsham decks that I wish I had, like Blob. I don't have Blob.
Oh yeah.
Which is a bummer because these decks are really, really good. But if there's anything I can say, it's that despite the limitations, I've still made fun decks and I've still had fun with the game. But it's a bummer sometimes, especially when you see somebody like Binks playing a really, really fun deck, but you can't do it because you don't have all the cards. I can definitely empathize with that.
Yeah, and that's why so many people in their streams are asking, well, what can replace this? But in a lot of cases, like there's no card out there like Blob. You can't replace it with anything. There's this, nothing does what he does. Oh, I think he's going to be in a Spotlight Cache actually this coming month for Deadpool. So there you go. You should be able to grab it.
Yes, believe me, I'm saving my caches.
Yeah, I did see that he was going to be in one. Actually, the Spotlight Caches for this coming month look pretty good. Most of them are pretty good cards. But yeah, no, I think that something should be done. There should be some sort of a catch-up mode or something where people can go back and grab something. I don't know, maybe even make like 4 cards available for them that maybe they didn't get and say, here, choose 1 or choose 2 of these. I don't know how they could do it, but I think it's important because you're not going to have, like we said earlier, you're not going to have people that necessarily can be like certain players and play this thing every single solitary day and do all the missions and have all that stuff. You're not going to have everybody that can do that. And if you want to get, keep people there. Now, they are making some strides. I did notice, I went into the Newverse shop a couple of nights ago and I noticed they have deck bundles.
Yes.
Like, okay. I've been saying that. I've been saying it for a while. I'm like, make a deck bundle. You can give, charge whatever, $9.99, $15 or something like that, and give them 3 or 4 cards in that bundle where somebody can just start a deck And I'm like, I saw that. I'm like, wow, okay. Well, I'm glad that, they're doing that. That's good. Get people to a point where if they want to play a Silver Surfer deck, they can get the 3 most important cards in a Silver Surfer deck. So I like that. But I think that, that's something that I hope in the future that they do a little bit more of, to help out like newer players or returning players. So.
Well, and I don't mean to be a downer or anything, but it is shocking to me that since our last conversation, they haven't made any improvements to the Series 3 players.
Right. No,
like
nothing.
there really hasn't been anything.
No.
And I get it, right? Their incentive to do that really isn't there because of the spotlight system.
Yep.
If you're playing every single day, if you're grinding conquests and getting all those rewards, you can keep up. I am adamant that if you're a free-to-play player, you can get a competitive deck in this game and do extremely well.
Yeah.
But that's always with an asterisk, right? Not everybody can. And even for someone like me, who has paid money into the game previously, that's not always enough. I mean, I've seen people with like 10,000 collector's tokens or more. I'm not one of them. I don't have the kind of money to spend on bundles. Honestly, the best value in the game right now is the Battle Pass and the Gold Pass.
Yep.
And if there's anything I can recommend to people trying to catch up is if you want to catch up a little bit faster, those are the best ways to do it. Yeah. But it's still a really big pain point in the game that I don't think, and especially I'm sure we have talked it to death, especially on your podcast, but the presentation they did for the roadmap.
Oh my God, what a disaster.
And they had Series 3 improvements at like in development, which is crazy considering, again, we talked about this almost a year ago.
We did.
Yep. It's insane. It's crazy. Like this stuff should be their top priority. Yep. It's the thing that's keeping a lot of people gated from playing the game. So overall, I'd say that it's still possible. And if you really, really grind the game, you can absolutely be competitive. But for someone like me, or for someone like even Joe, who's, coming on when they can, sometimes that's not possible. Yeah. So it's a bummer.
Yeah, no, I agree. That roadmap thing, it's just like, I mentioned this, I think yesterday on a show with O Behaved. I was so upset when I saw like sitting there through that IGN thing, which was like torture anyway, because that was honest to God, like except for the video game previews, was so bad. Like there was so many things on that were just awful and waiting for that to come. And then I wouldn't have even noticed it did unless I checked their Discord and I saw the Discord had released it. Yeah. So then I'm looking and I'm seeing and it was so simple. Like all they had to do was say, we're giving you a free card.
Yep.
That's it. Lead off with that. Like start with that. You're giving you're giving people something for free, which has not happened since Kitty Pryde. And the only reason Kitty Pryde happened was because of that error in the card. So everybody got it for nothing. But other than that, you're giving away a free card, man. It's like when you're, I work in retail. You post in retail something that you're giving away free. And I used to laugh about this because we'd have lines outside our store for the stupidest things. If you're giving somebody away something free, they will come and get it. It doesn't matter what it is. I joke around saying if we were giving number 2 pencils away for free, they would come and get them. It's just how it is. You talk about free and people are going to come for it. So, and then, you see the roadmap and you see the in development thing was draft mode. Oh, well, that's fantastic. But, now you're saying that a lot of this stuff that was in development is no longer in development.
Right.
Which is in essence what they led off with was that the character mastery is not being done anymore. So then you think, well, what are the odds that this draft mode is going to actually even be done? So it's just I in a way, I feel bad for them. Like their team, I'm sure had things to say that came there with scripts and stuff like that. I'm sure that they had to talk to and everything. But to me, like with a guy like Ben, right, who is so outgoing, right, when he does his videos every month and all that kind of stuff, he's just an outgoing type of guy. He's good at presenting things. Man, you got to have him at an event like that. He has to
Yeah.
be there and has
Yeah.
to be the one to say, imagine he comes out, he goes, yo, guys, did you want how would you like a free card from Marvel Snap this month? How would you? I mean, everybody would have been all over it. They would have been like, yes, that's amazing. Give me a free card. Give me something free. And I think that this following like what was going on for a few weeks. So the collectible borders came out and oh yeah, they're 900 or 500 gold and they only work on one card. So that happened. And then a lot of other monetary stuff happened. The gold now they're back, but to buy the gold bundles went away, and all of that stuff. So yeah, that's a miss. And hopefully they learned from it, which I'm sure they probably did. But yeah, to your point, that was almost like disastrous. I remember doing my pod prior to that, thinking like, okay, the last time they had a big thing like this, it was PC launch, and it was huge. I mean, they gave away a variant, they gave away a bunch of stuff, and PC launch was huge. You're gonna say and hype this up like they did, and be like, hey, we're coming to this. And we're, and you're getting everybody all hyped up for this, man. You got to knock this out of the park. And unfortunately, it didn't go that way.
Well, and there are some silver linings here, right? I don't know if you watched it, but It's Guest Gaming did a fantastic summary video.
That 100%. Yeah, he explains everything like Deadpool's Diner and all that. Yeah. Yep.
Really incredible, and we're blessed to have people like that in the community that try to look on the bright side of things. And I think that they have been taking a lot of right steps. They've done things that have legitimately surprised me, like including borders in the daily logins. That was a welcome surprise. And I was one of the people that was incredibly disappointed with the way that they handled character mastery, especially with that weird hashtag joke thrown in the notes. That felt like, I'm sure they didn't mean it, but it felt very derogatory towards people like me who were really hoping for that feature.
Yep.
However, they did announce the character albums, which are a sort of,
kind of similar.
Yeah, they're not bad. Obviously, your favorite character might not ever show up in an album, so that's unfortunate, but I understand that that kind of thing is hard to develop. I'm glad that they're doing something about it. If there's one thing that I'd wish they'd work harder on, it's communication. Like a lot of this stuff, because I'm so tapped in to the sort of Marvel Snap sphere, I know about. But if I was just like playing the game, I wouldn't know about any of this stuff, right? I think it's something that they need to focus on, but we could go on about that. But overall, I think you and I can both agree, especially with the release of Arishem and the new cards that are coming up, the game is getting very exciting. There are new things to look forward to, and they're making steps in the right direction towards a healthier monetization system.
Agreed. And like the character albums, I would, if I were them, I'd coincide them kind of like they're doing with Deadpool and Wolverine. Coincide them with upcoming films. Marvel's a little slow right now. They're only doing one film now this year, which is weird. But, in the future, next year, Fantastic Four. Coincide your character albums with the Fantastic Four. Have all those characters. For me, they could put in Galactus because I would love that because I have every single variant of him. But to coincide them with something big, coincide them with the movies. And the same thing with Deadpool's Diner. They said they're going to do it more. So, if they do it, maybe coincide it with the movies. That's when everybody is going to be coming in to play your game. No matter if they're new players or returning players or whatever, they're going to notice it during the time of a Marvel film. They're going to be like, oh man, I got to go get my merch. I got to go play these games. I got to go. It's the perfect time for them to get games noticed. But I agree with you. There's a bright future, and we're going to talk a little bit about it soon with some upcoming cards and everything too, and our thoughts about that. But yeah, I would agree. A lot of the things that are happening now. The borders were a surprise for sure.
Yeah,
I never thought they'd give away 2 borders, in the collection track like that. And now obviously they said that could be in the season pass track as well now.
Right.
They're giving away emotes, which was a big topic of discussion of 3 months ago when people weren't able to get them unless they paid a whole bunch of gold for them. Now they're giving some away. So yeah, I think that's good. I think that's smart. I think really, like you said, the the season 3 type of thing for new players, returning players, and then obviously the cash system itself, I think is a big one that they need to look at. But I'm pretty confident that they probably will in the future.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, RSM is out there, and if you got him, I hope you're having fun with him, because it is a really, really cool card and a fun card to play. So
absolutely.
All right, we are going to go and we're going to look into the future a little bit too. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at next season's cards, and we, of course, it is Deadpool and Wolverine. I have my tickets already. I had them when they first announced they were on sale.
Yeah.
I'm going to my matinee that I've discovered are amazing now. I wait for the weekend following, because I think it comes out on the week of the 24th. So my tickets are for the 27th, which is a Monday. A buddy of mine used to go to movies at matinees all the time. I'm like, dude, why are you going to matinees? Like 12 o'clock in the afternoon. He's like, do me a favor, get tickets and go to one and you'll see. And I'm like, okay. So I got tickets. I went to one. I'm like, this is beautiful. There is no one in this theater. I can sit where I want. I could sprawl out. I can have popcorn on one side and my drink on the other side of me, because there's nobody sitting next to me. I'm like, okay, now I get why you go to matinees. But yeah, I'm excited. It's the first time we're getting a Marvel film in a while. And of course, Deadpool. Everybody loves Deadpool, and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. Everybody loves him as well. So, so yeah, it's going to be fun, man. So let's dig into some of these cards, of course, that we are getting. The season starts already next Tuesday. So this is the season pass. Now, the kicker with this is Gwenpool has nothing whatsoever to do with Deadpool. Nothing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, maybe you'll know more than me, but I believe Gwenpool was sort of a mishap, because there were like cross directions on what Gwenpool's outfit was supposed to be, and she sort of ended up looking like Deadpool despite not having any correlation.
Correct. Yeah, that's 100% correct. Yeah, there was, but she has nothing to do with him. But why not? She's been languishing off in that whole list of cards that were data mined but never went anywhere. Yeah. So they probably just figured, well, her name sounds similar, so why not? Let's just throw her in the season. But she is a 4/6. On reveal, pick a random card in your hand 3 times. Give +2 power each time. So we've got to admit, we've had some pretty good seasons these last couple seasons with cards. Yeah. There have been very few that have been garbage in the seasons. Like sometimes we get that one where it's like, this is a skip week. But I'll tell you, like even Makari from this season, everybody kind of thought lousy, but it fit in some decks. It was actually not so bad in certain decks. Yeah. So what do you think of this card? It's kind of a little weird. Obviously RNG, it could pick the same card 3 times. It could spread it out, but what do you think overall of Gwenpool?
So when I first read the text, it felt a little underwhelming, because I was comparing it to Nakia, right? Yep. Nakia is a 3/3. She gives your entire hand +1.
Yep.
And this card picks a random card in your hand 3 times and gives +2. So she's a 4/6. She's giving 6 to your hand. That's a 4/12. That's pretty good.
That is.
What makes her scary is combining her with a card like Absorbing Man, or hell, even
Wong.
Yeah, I mean, any of the double reveal guys can work here, and that begins to look very scary. I mean, and I might be jumping the gun, but when I saw this card and I started thinking about it, this might be the kind of deck where you play Sebastian Shaw and not Silver Surfer, right? This might enable a hand buff deck. This is something that I've thought about for a while because of cards. I mean, you've got a couple of them in the game that double their power.
Yeah.
You've got Black Panther, you've got Daken, you've got Deadpool, these sorts of cards.
Yep.
This feels like the way to open up that archetype in the same way that Baron Zemo did for Mill. This feels like the missing piece to me. I don't know if that's going to be true. It might turn out that she's just a plug and play card, but I'm telling you, man, throwing a Killmonger with a Dawkins and a Deadpool on the board sounds pretty insane to me. Throw Nova in the deck, and it's buffing all of the cards. She could be extremely good in that context.
Okay. Yeah, that's a different way to look at it. For sure. Yeah. I mean, the value, like you said, I mean, a 412 is a pretty damn good card. Right there. I mean, you're definitely getting the value of that there. I'm thinking maybe someone may end up doing a ramp style deck where if you can ramp her out early, depending on what cards you have. I mean, Galactus ramp, holy cow, dude. If she happens to hit that Galactus a couple of times instead of a 6/5, now you've got a 6/9 maybe that you can play. As a Galactus, which a lot of people won't play him because he's underpowered now, and a lot of times you could just stop him. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that this may bring up different decks, like you said, altogether. That you may just play things that will work really well with getting points. So yeah, I would agree. I think it's going to be, look, it's season pass cards, no matter what, even if they're a little underwhelming, most of the time they react to it now, and they usually will buff them in a way, or give them something right away. So I wouldn't doubt that they might do that with her at some point, even if it's a 4/7 or something like that, or make it a 3/6 or whatever. But yeah, no, I agree. I that's interesting though, like a buff hand type of deck. I didn't think about that. That's a good idea. I like it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be the first to test the hand buff deck, but who knows? I make garbage decks all the time.
It's fun though, man. It's fun to play with something new and something not just meta, not something that's just a meta staple. It just makes the game more fun. All right, so next up we have Hydra Bob. Hydra Bob is a good old Hydra Bob, man. He's a 1/4. After each turn, this moves if a player snapped. Which is a first snap mechanic that we're getting in the game. I think, yeah. That does something when a player snaps. So very interesting. This guy is going to be a blast in playing Deadpool's Diner, because everybody's going to be snapping throughout those matches to get the double bubs and all that kind of stuff. So he's going to be flying all over the board. Whether or not he helps you, it's like a martyr in a way. It's not going to lose you the game, but he may go to a lane that you don't want him in. May be in a lane where you didn't want him to be the last card in that lane. But this is another one of those cards where I think, is it a meta card? Probably not, but it's going to be a fun card, I think.
Yeah, and obviously I think off meta all the time. Yeah. When I see that 1/4, I'm thinking Moon Girl. I mean, throw a She-Hulk, throw a couple Hydra Bobs, throw a couple Titanias, and that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Let's not understate that 1/4 is not impressive, but a 2/8 is impressive, and that's what you get with Moon Girl. So that's what I'm going to be trying with Hydra Bob. I also think it's interesting that this is the first mechanic that they're trying with snapping, and I think it's because it's relatively safe, right? If they had some other mechanic where it gained power, or if it had like the ability to stop an opponent's ability with a snap, that would be kind of weird. That might change the dynamic of the game entirely. This is something that's almost random. Almost. And it has implications too, like in the same way that Titania has a lot of play with your opponent if you're just playing with the card straight. This also has a lot of play with your opponent. If your opponent thinks that it's worth it to snap and making Hydra Bob move, that might win them the game in the same way that it might lose them the game. I think it's interesting. I don't know if it'll be meta. I highly doubt it, considering the standard at which a 1 cost has to be.
Yeah.
But it's going to be really, really interesting. This is going to be our first foray into something that hasn't been done before.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll get to another thing later for the cards, that it does seem, like you had mentioned before, it does seem like they're putting some new mechanics in the game, which is going to change the game. And listen, new mechanics change the game altogether and just make it more fun to play. So, yeah. But all right, moving on, we have Ajax. Ajax is a 5/5. Ongoing gives +1 power. For each card in play afflicted by negative power. The first card that came to mind with me with this is Scorpion. Yeah, I mean, you have to play Scorpion, because every single card that comes out of their deck is going to give this guy power. So But yeah, what do you think of Ajax? I mean, obviously he's for affliction decks. If you're going to play like a high Evo with affliction, if you're going to play a Wong that has Wong and hazmat affliction like that, obviously, or anything like that, he could be a pretty big boy.
Yeah, something that came to mind with me is like, I think this might be the finisher that those like negative surfer decks have been looking for. The ones that are running the Mystique and the Hazmat and the Wong. Because the ideal play line is you go Wong on 4, Ajax on 5, and then you go something like Mystique and Hazmat on the last turn.
Yeah, that's true.
You're going to get a ton of power.
Oh my God, he's going to be huge.
Yeah. Another thing too that people have been bringing up is the idea of doing like Typhoid Mary into Ajax and then doing a Taskmaster or something. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
It also might bring Debris into a relative spot because the previous payoff cards for negative power have been like Abomination, and that's about it. So this gives another avenue for those decks that I think is going to be interesting. I do agree with most people on the idea that he's probably not going to get as big as a Gilgamesh or something like that. It's just a lot harder to control your opponent's cards.
It's true.
To me, this reads as like the Ronin to Devil Dinosaur, where Gilgamesh is the Devil Dinosaur in this instance, and Ajax is the Ronin. He's not going to be as popular, but you're going to see him pop up, and he's going to be very big when he does.
Yeah. No, yeah, like to your point, he's not going to get like like crazy numbers like Gilgamesh does, simply because he's only getting 1 for each card in play with that is affected by negative power, not the amount. If there was the amount of negative power, oh my God! If you like your play you mentioned, if they did a Hazmat Wong with the, oh my goodness, this guy would be like in the 40s. With all the amount of power that you're taking off the cards. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it's going to be, a card that's definitely going to be used in junk lists. Surfer lists is probably a good call, especially like you said, for that Hazmat Surfer list that a lot of people still play. It's a very popular deck. So yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I think he's going to be generally pretty good, especially in those lists. He's definitely for a certain list. And you're not going to really, I don't know. Even people play Typhoid Mary in Shuri lists. Maybe he makes it into Shuri. You take away that negative buff and stuff that you're losing on your own cards when you play Typhoid, and then maybe Shuri this guy who might be big at that point. Might not be a bad idea. So I think he'll find his way into some lists. I think he's a pretty good card.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have Copycat. Copycat is a 3/5. When you draw this, steal the text from the bottom card of your opponent's deck. The biggest thing that came to mind with me when I saw this card is deck information. You are now going to have pretty good information about what deck they're playing, and that's huge. I mean, let's say you're playing. Let's say she copies the text of a Hela. Well, number one, now you know they're not getting their Hela because their Hela is on the bottom of their deck. So chances are they're not finding that card. So that's a big thing. Same thing with like a Surfer. If she picks up Surfer's ability, then you're like, yep, you're not getting your Surfer pretty much. So now I know to snap. I can snap on you because I know you're not getting the cards you need. So I think that's big. But the other thing, obviously, too, is the abilities that she copy. I mean, it could be anything, an Iron Lad's ability or a Wong's ability or, so many different things it could get. I think this could be, honestly, like the sleeper card, or could be one of the best. She could be the best card of this month.
I mean, if you ask me, there's no way this card isn't the best of the month.
Yeah.
And the reason why is we've seen this before, and I'm one of the people that didn't get Nocturne, right? And I regret it all the time because Nocturne
is so good.
Nocturne is in a bunch of lists. She's a 3/5. She has movement and location manipulation.
Yep.
And when you look at a card like this, it's just got to be good. You want to know why Morph is bad? Morph is bad because when you play the card, you just hope that he gets something good.
Yep.
This is Morph on steroids.
Yeah.
Not only are you getting the information from the bottom of the deck, but you can choose whether or not to play Copycat. Yep. And she already starts as a 3/5.
Yeah.
It's insane. like Morph has been making it into lists more recently because of the big cards that have started to make it in like the Hella meta. This can go in any meta. It's insane. I honestly, it might be a candidate for a nerf at its stat line. She's getting so much for absolutely nothing. It's crazy.
Yeah, 3/5 is a premium stat line, man. Like your biggest 3/5 cards, like you were saying, Nocturne, I think surprised a lot of people. You can literally go back to that season and you can say you can make an argument that Nocturne is the best card in that season. You really could. She is incredible for what she does. Anytime you get a card that can move and has location manipulation on top of that, which is a huge thing in Marvel Snap, then it's going to be a good card. But I agree. I think that this is going to be, I think this is the card of the month. I think easily, hands down, with the power that she has, but also the stat line as well. This, we'll even see, like you were saying, maybe she gets knocked down to like a 3/3 or a 3/4 if they find out she's a little bit overpowered in what she does. But dude, like this is, I think, tremendous. Like, look at it with almost anything that you can pick up. Just sure, there are going to be some RNG things you don't want. You don't want a 3-turn destroyer. You don't want that. So there will be things. But I mean, let's say she hits a White Widow. Okay, great. They're getting a -2 when you got a 3/5 in that same lane. So a lot more upside than there is, I think, RNG downside to this. But yeah, I agree with you. I think this is the card of the month.
Yeah.
All right, then we're going on to the last card of the month. This is the free card that we talked about, and the one you're going to be able to get through Deadpool's Diner. You will be able to get the base card there at I think the lower levels of that, according to It's Guest Gaming's video that he was talking about. It won't be up so high. You'll be able to get this pretty easily, because I know that was a concern for people thinking, well, are they going to make this really hard to get? I don't think so. I think she's going to be pretty simple to get. It's the variant that you're going to have a harder time getting, because that's way up the ladder. But it's Cassandra Nova, which they did change again. She's a 3/1. On reveal, now it's been changed to Steel. It was Drain for a while, and people were wondering, well, what is Drain? We've never had that before. It is now Steal 1 power from each card in your opponent's deck. Pretty good. I mean, a 3 that can be a 3/8 pretty easily. So, I mean, I don't know. I think this is pretty good. Plus, not to mention, now, what I'm wondering is and maybe you'll know the answer to this. So, do your opponent's cards, or is she just taking that one, and then are they coming into play? Like, let's say she steals a power from a, I don't know, from a Jeff, right? Is he now coming into play at a 2/2?
I would assume yes.
I would think so too.
And I might be getting ahead of myself here, but there's another card coming up, Silver Sable, that has something similar to this.
Yep.
Where she's a
1/1.
A 1/1, right? And she steals 2 power from the top card of your opponent's deck, right?
Yep.
So what's really impressive about that is when people look at this card and they do the math in their head, they're like, okay, it's turn 3. You have drawn a couple of your cards. She's going to be like a 3/7.
Yeah.
On turn 3. Well, actually, she's more like a 3/10, 3/4. Like, she's huge if your opponent is playing down those cards that have the negative power. That's where she's powerful, especially if you can do like an Absorbing Man, like we've talked about, where you double that effect. I mean, it's like Sage, but you're really disrupting your opponent. Which is extremely strong. And this is a tangent, but I'm really excited to get my hands on this card, because I made a custom card when Drewberry was doing custom cards way back in the day.
Oh, nice.
That had a similar effect to this. Okay. My card was a 3/3 that took 3 power from your opponent's hand. So in that way, I'm like really excited to tinker with this card. It really excites me. And especially now that we know that Silver Sable is coming out, this is going to be a theming of cards. We don't know. I don't know exactly how many, but the stealing power effect is really strong. They have to be very careful with how they manage it. And I would imagine that Luke Cage is just going to be in every deck.
I would think so too. Yeah, you're probably right, especially with Ajax coming out and then her in the same month, and they all kind of do that similar thing. Then yeah, you're probably right. Luke Cage is gonna. I mean, Luke Cage is already popping up now in Hella decks because of the nerf that Hella got. Yeah. So yeah, you're probably going to be seeing that more and more happen. But yeah, look, this is it's cool. You know, again, she's got a power in steel that may appear more often down the road. Now you may see that a lot more. It's basically a card that's going to be a bit different. And again, like I said originally, you're getting the card for free, so that's pretty cool. I think it's cool. She's also the main villain in that Deadpool Wolverine movie. So the clone of I think she was a clone of Professor X or something like that. DNA from Professor X is how she was created. So, but yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool. And obviously, she is at least according to this order, she's gonna be the last card given, but it depends on when they release that Deadpool's Diner and stuff like that too. Yeah. So, before we get to I want to get to some other cards. Before we do, I'm going to go back to your comment about having, the interactions with other players. So, how do you feel now about alliances? And now that because we're getting alliances coming. I think they said the end of July. How do you feel about the fact that now, once we saw that mapped out a little bit and we saw the screens, how do you feel about the fact that there's a way to chat in that? I think that's kind of cool. Now you can kind of chat with your, I'll call them guild mates, even though I know they don't call it that, but technically it is a guild. It's like guilds I've been in with World of Warcraft and things like that. But I kind of like that. I think that's kind of cool. Another way to communicate with people.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, for me, I don't know if I'll find it particularly helpful. I'm very engaged with the Discord communities that I'm a part of, right? As I'm sure that a lot of other people are. When you're this invested in the game, you want to talk to people about it.
Yep.
But for everybody, I think it's a huge plus, especially that the idea that you can post decks in the chat is so
that's cool.
The fact that you can do it in app is really, really neat.
Yep.
Now, I am going to bring this up because I've heard a couple of people mention it, and I'm on the same page, I think. They have to include a friends list with this, right? There's no way that they release this, and then the only way to communicate with people is through the guild. They have to release a friends list, right? It just seems so natural.
Yeah, you would think so. Yeah.
It would make doing battles a lot easier. You could just like sync up with a friend and click a button. Maybe I've heard people say it would be really neat to have like a little profile page. You can set your favorite cards. We really need that in Snap. And that goes with the interaction thing, because let's face it. What if how many times am I going to match into a player, see a really cool deck, and then not see what the rest of it is? Yeah. I would love to be able to send them a friend request and be like, hey, can I see the rest of that deck? That was awesome.
Yep.
That would be amazing. But
yeah,
if it's just the guild system, I'm going to be a little bit lower on it because, it's restrictive. You already have to have friends that play Marvel Snap that are going to be interested in doing it, or you're matching up with a bunch of random people that you have no connection to.
Yeah, that's true. There's some things that they have to iron out, and I hope they kind of do with it. Like, I'm curious to see, because I played WoW for years, and I was a guild master a couple times, but I'm curious to see whether or not you can be in more than one, because that's a big thing. Because when in World of Warcraft you couldn't. When you were in a guild, you either had to leave or that was it. You could not be in more than one, because I know that I feel kind of bad for the content creators, and I don't know how they're going to get around that, because I know their audiences are probably going to want them to have one, and they're going to want to get the chance to join it. But if it's limited, where it's only a certain amount of people, they almost can't do it, because how could you choose? How would you say to the people that watch your channel, well, I'm gonna have like a lottery of all the people that listen or something like that, or pick a number and I'll choose, because it's going to create a lot of bad feelings. So I don't even know if people like that would even bother with it or even want to have one. But yeah, I think they have some things to work out. I do like the fact, though, that, like you said, the decks being able to be shared in there, and it is when you look at it, when I saw the panel, it's very Discord-ish. A lot of it looks like Discord. So I think that's cool, and I hope it will end up just being another way for people to just communicate with one another, because I think that's cool. Can all kind of get to know each other a little bit and know another player. If you're going to be doing missions together and things like that, like a guild does, it's kind of cool to get to know the other players. So yeah. That's kind of neat. All right, going to move on to the next set of cards I have here, and this is these cards are upcoming. This is coming up, of course. This will be September. We have July, which is Deadpool Wolverine, August, which is Young Avengers, and then this season we saw the cards a little bit, but we didn't see the text or the power or anything like that on them. This is the Madam Web season, which is coming up in September. And the biggest news about this is that we have 3 cards in this set that have a new mechanic called Activate. You've got Aranya, you've got Scarlet Spider, and you've got Symbiote Spider-Man, all of which say Activate on their cards. So we're under the assumption of what it's going to be like. I know I've had other people tell me that they might think that they think it could be the mechanic that we were going to get with Kitty, where you have to physically do something with that card to make it do its thing. So if you want to have Scarlet Spider clone himself, you literally have to touch the card in order to do that. This is so interesting to me because as a Magic player, it's almost like tapping your cards. Magic had so many things where you had to tap to do this and tap to do that and untap or tap and stuff like that. I love this. I honestly think, and so obviously this month is move, right? This is all about move. Most of this stuff is move related. The following month, which is going to be apparently Deadpool and Carnage, or I'm sorry, Venom and Carnage, right, in the October month, which fits Halloween. Honestly, I think this is going to be a destroy-centric month, and I think that there's probably going to be 3 of these cards that have an activate ability. So I think what they may be doing here, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think how they're going to introduce this activate is they're going to make sets for each like specific way to play, like move and destroy and stuff. I think for each like primary type of deck that is out there, I think they're going to do a season for each one and give each one of those 3 of these activate cards. I may be wrong, but I have a funny feeling that I think that's where we're headed with it. But what are you? I'm excited about this. Like we were talking about earlier, I think this is exciting because as a current player of the game, you are still going to need to learn to work around this, because if you don't, you're not going to be maybe up in the ladder where you used to be, because the people who come out and master this right off the bat and get to know these abilities are the ones that are going to be climbing and being able to use them. But I think it's neat, man. I really think it's cool that they're doing this.
Yeah, and I assume that you're on the same page with me where, as far as we know, the activate effect happens the turn after you play the card.
Yes.
Right? And then from that point forward, you can activate it at any time. Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is interesting to me. I think that this... I think it's very akin to Magic. I think you mentioned it's like tapping cards in a previous podcast, right? I really like that aspect. I think it's going to open the space for cards a lot more. I'm hoping that they look at some older cards and maybe adapt them to activate, because I think they work a lot better.
Yep.
I've heard some people say that they should turn Kitty Pryde into an activate card, and I think that's pretty awesome.
Yep.
But as far as what I'm predicting with these cards in the upcoming season, I think Symbiote Spider-Man and Scarlet Spider are insane.
Yeah,
I think that they are going to dominate the meta for a while.
Yep.
Madam Web is insane. It's going to make move a menace. Yep. And Super Sable is actually the card that I'm going to grab because I really like the effects. Yeah. I don't know why. It's just I like it a lot. But all of this being said, what I find fascinating about activate cards is, unless I'm mistaken, there really isn't a way you can make a 6-cost card with this text, right?
Yeah, no, that's true. No, they couldn't. They wouldn't be able to make a 6-cost unless there was a way to. No, I don't know. No, there really isn't. I mean, the only way you'd get it out would be if you played a ramp deck. So you'd have to play that style of deck in order to do that. So yeah, no, I would agree. I don't think, it doesn't appear to me that they can, unless unless I'm way off base, and that's not the way they're doing it. But I think they have to have it done that way. I don't see any other way they could do it. So yeah, no, they won't be able to. It'll just turn 5 cost would be the highest they could go.
And obviously, like, they don't have to make 6 cost cards,
No,
but it
they
is
don't.
limiting in a way, right? Like, we know for a fact that the 6 cost cards are going to stay as this like pretty small group, considering the upcoming cards, which is a shame because I think 6 cost cards are exciting. They're end caps to the game. That's the only like concern that I have over this mechanic. Everything else I am ecstatic for. This is going to, like, I think I was listening to maybe KM's podcast, where, and that, don't quote me, but he mentioned it was similar to Vision, where the mind games that come with the activate effect are going to give you the same feeling as Vision on where he'll move.
100%.
Especially with a card like Scarlet Spider, where at any point during the game, it may move. And so, like, imagine a scenario where you have a Professor X, and you know for a fact that they're going to be able to activate their symbiote Spider-Man at any time to merge with a card. Do you put it down on turn 5, or do you wait until turn 6 in order to stop that effect? Because note, I think Professor X might be the only thing that could stop an activate effect in the game.
Oh, okay.
That might just be a theory, but I think that's the only card that like locks down a location in that way. It
would make sense because you shouldn't be able to like tap on the card through that little force field that Prof X puts out. So it would make sense. Yeah.
I'm not, and actually I'm a huge fan of the new Professor X. Good job, second gen. It's really cool.
It's good. I agree.
And I know, like, I shouldn't be thinking of counterplay to this stuff. It's so new. I'm excited to get my hands on it, but it's just something I've been thinking about. Like, the counterplay to these cards, assuming that you don't have them, is nothing. There's nothing in the game other than a Professor X that I think could really stop an activate effect, which is interesting. And I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon, but we'll see.
They might make a counter activate card if they get enough of them out there. Yeah.
It's interesting, but overall, super excited. I feel like these cards are going to be stellar. The one that I'm least excited about is Aranya, but I love the base card art. I think it's adorable.
Oh yeah, no doubt. The Symbiote Spider-Man one took me by surprise because I honestly didn't think we would ever see a card of that. Especially since we have a variant. We have a Spider-Man variant when he's in the black costume and the McFarlane art where he's up against that big pose and the webs behind him. So I didn't really think we would see that. Scarlet Spider, I'm super excited. I love the base art with the hoodie. That's his.
I love Scarlet Spider.
Yeah, I do too. I always loved that character, even from that bad clone or the clone art that they did. I always loved him. So I'm like, yeah, that was awesome. When we see it's funny. I think someone on my show was talking about it's like, do you think they'll revert like that Spider-Man that's in the black costume? You think they can change that variant and have him be like a variant for Symbiote Spider-Man instead of Spider-Man? Because essentially it's the same thing. So having a Spider-Man variant in the black costume, I mean, I guess you could kind of say, well, no, it's not the symbiote. It's just Peter in the black costume that he had after the whole Venom thing was over, which I guess they could do that too. But it'd be interesting to see. I don't know. I don't even know if they'd have the power to do that or if they could revert a variant and make it into something else that it wasn't before. So, but yeah, this set looks fun. And I laugh because Madam Web, I wonder if they had plans to initially have this around the time of the movie. And then they maybe saw the movie or something and thought, we maybe better not do that. It wasn't horrible. I watched it and I will say a lot of Sony stuff is garbage. Madam Web was actually okay. It was definitely not a great movie by any stretch, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't one of Sony's worst films that I've seen them do with the Marvel characters. So, but yeah, I'm excited too. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And then obviously, I have no idea what this is going to be, although I do think with the fact that it's Venom Carnage It's got to be Destroy. It has to be something for Destroy in here. And I guess that's cool because that list is so static and to me so very boring. Like it's all the same thing. It's X-23, it's Carnage, it's Venom, it's Deadpool, it's Hulkbuster. It's usually all the same. So maybe they'll give some new cards here. And I love that. I mean, there's Flash Thompson Venom, man, Agent Venom. I dig that.
Yeah.
Anti-Venom obviously is a cool one. Misery, Scorn, Toxin. I love these characters, so I think that's going to be pretty cool. But yeah, and right in time for Halloween. That that the monsters of Marvel will be out in October. So yeah, man, it's cool. I love how. I like this. I like when you get these data mines and stuff like that, even though the fact that, it's not, you don't get, sometimes they don't come out exactly the same way that they were data mined and stuff, and they change them and everything like that. But overall, as you had pointed out before, I think that it's pretty exciting time overall to be playing this game.
Yeah, no, it's going to be really, really cool. And I'm going to be excited to listening to your podcast when the Venoms come around, because the only ones that I know from that list are Toxin and Anti-Venom. The other ones are a complete mystery to me. So that's going to be exciting. I always like learning about new characters. Marvel Snap is really good about that. About introducing new concepts. So yeah, super excited. Obviously, with the Snap Judgments League Season 3 coming up, I'm going to be really interested in the game. And yeah, it's super awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's just it's just fun stuff, man. I just like to say there's so many comic books out there and characters that are out there. When I leaf through books, I'm looking through and I'm like, we don't have this guy in Snap yet. We don't have this one here either. People are, sometimes people will reach out to me and be like, are they going to run out of characters? I'm like, you can go for another 10, 15, 20 years and they probably still not run out of Marvel characters because they have so many, there's big names out there too that we haven't even been introduced to yet that are still out there, waiting. I mean, Spider-Man alone has got, probably hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of enemies that he has. And all of the other cards that associate with him. Some of that, it's funny when you look at those old data mines and stuff like that. I love looking at those. I want that J. Jonah Jameson card to be a thing.
Yes,
I want it to be a thing. When I had the Kid Snap on the show, we were talking about him. Oh my God, to change the emotes to be like, or like make them the ruder emote bubbles. Oh, I would love it. I would absolutely love it. I think that would be hilarious. I know people can mute you, but it's like, and then I think that they had mentioned, well, make it so that you can't be muted when Jonah's on the board. Oh my God, that would be tremendous. I don't think they could do that, but it would be so hilarious if they were able to do it. So yeah, man, it's cool. There's a lot of I like it because there's a lot of positivity. There's a lot of good things coming for the game down the road. So I'll ask you this before we end up here, but what is something most that you're looking forward to, or that maybe something that you would hope that the game would end up getting somewhere down the road?
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer both sides of that question.
Sure.
I think what I'm most looking forward to is the new systems and card mechanics that are coming. I just love deck brewing. It is like one of the things that I love most about this game. And having these new mechanics to play with it's going to shape the rest of the game's history, I think. Because honestly, this game, more than any other game, is supposed to be simple, but it's inevitable that we're going to get more complicated decks and more complicated theory crafting. And there's no other game like Marvel Snap. So I'm really excited to dive in and start making decks that way. And as for things that I'd like to see, I really hope they nail a friends list to the guild system. That would be amazing. And as always, they can do better in terms of helping those Series 3 players and those returning players. That's always going to be my pain point with the game. I'm not entrenched in there anymore, but I was, and it was painful. So yeah, that's what I'm mostly looking forward to. And obviously really excited for the Snap Judgments League. I can't speak enough how amazing that's been for my enjoyment of the game. Huge shout outs to Glazer and the Snap Judgments podcast. Really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, Glazer's a great dude, and that whole crew. But yeah, awesome. Well, tell everybody where they can find you, dude. I know you're on X. I know I communicate with you on there, but let everybody know what you're up to.
Yeah, so as previously mentioned, my YouTube content is whenever I feel like it. So feel free to check that out every 6 months. But if you want to really connect with me, yes, you can find me on Twitter. Elon calls it X, and I just refuse to.
I know, it's horrible. It's so stupid.
And I also have a Twitch. I might start streaming when Marvel Rivals comes out. And keep an eye on my other socials because I'm starting a Marvel Multiverses TTRPG pretty soon with a couple of friends. I'm going to be streaming that. It's going to be really, really fun. And that's what I got planned.
Very cool. Awesome, man. Well, look, dude, it was great to have you back again. You're certainly welcome anytime. I hope to have you back again sometime down the road. But yeah, I'm glad to see you back. I'm glad to see you playing again. I was happy to see that you made that post about Snap Judgments League, and I'm like, that's great. Come back to the game and have fun and take part in that. So glad to have you as always. And I'm sure I'll be talking to you a lot on the X or whatever the heck that he wants to call it.
All the time.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for coming out. I appreciate it, dude. Always great talking to you. And guys, make sure you go and check out Kiernimbus. Obviously, he said he has a YouTube page. Check that out there. Check him out on X. He is there. You can communicate with him there too. And yeah, if you're going to be into Rivals, I wish I could play those games. I can't play first-person shooters. I get motion sick from playing them.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're into those games, go check him out for that too. All right, guys, that is going to do it for this episode for tonight. If you are watching on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that like button because it helps with that villainous algorithm thing that YouTube likes to play with. If you're listening on audio, I love you guys. Make sure you rate the podcast. A lot of times you can do that in either Spotify or on Apple. Do that. If you leave me any comments or anything like that, I will always respond to them. So that is going to do it for me for this week. You guys have a great rest of your week in Snap. Enjoy RSM. And then, of course, I will be having giveaways as usual for season passes. That will be coming up. I'll make that announcement as well very soon. So, guys, have a great holiday. 4th of July, obviously, tomorrow. Please stay safe during that. Of course, be kind to one another always, especially on the socials. And hopefully, I will talk to you all on the next episode of Snap Decisions. This is your Snap DJ signing off.